The Tennis Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gam Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play their fantasy pick'em for a chance to win 100 times your money in NBA, MMA, MLB, NHL golf, and more. Sign up today at UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code SGPN to get a 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by our NFL Draft Bingo. Play NFL Draft Bingo for a free chance to win a $100 SGPN gift card exclusively on the SGPN app. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gam Podcast Network. It's currently early Wednesday morning, roughly 1 a.m. Eastern Time on April 24th. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to preview another Masters 1000 event. It is officially time to preview Madrid. So we're going to preview the Madrid Open. Should be fun. A lot of big-name players here, except for one, which we'll talk about in a second. Before we get to any of that, though, do want to remind everybody once again to check out the merch store for the Tennis Gambling Podcast merch, as well as other SGPN merchandise. So once again, go to the SGPN website, go to the merch store, and you could definitely find yourself some great Tennis Gambling Podcast merchandise, like shirts, mugs, etc. Also, a reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Also, don't forget to rate and review the podcast on Spotify or Apple. So whichever way you consume your podcast, there is a way to leave feedback and support the show. So I hope that you end up doing so. Now, I also want to remind everybody that there are multiple events going on with SGPN right now, and one of them is going to be the NFL draft because it is draft week. Actually, going to be the draft tomorrow, and you're looking at the Sports Gam Podcast covering you with NFL draft props, mock drafts, and their NFL draft watch party. Tune in Thursday night on the Sports Gam Podcast YouTube page to hang out with the guys for the best NFL draft watch party out there. I'm not going to be on the show, unfortunately. I'll be busy with some Passover stuff, but either way, though, a lot of great personalities and overall just members of SGPN who will be covering the draft. Plus, there's also going to be an NFL draft bingo contest. So free to enter. Make sure you download the SGPN app for your free chance to win $100 in the form of an SGPN gift card with NFL draft bingo. Anyway, time to start off with the actual recap of what happened last episode in the finals of the three events taking place on Sunday. Unfortunately, we've kind of gone ice cold. We did end up sweeping 4 or 5 episodes. Then we kind of hit a wall, and we ended up losing the lock and dog on Sunday. Had Fritz and Struff over 22.5 games as the lock at minus 126, and Struff kind of killed them. I ended up winning 7-5, 6-3. So the first set was competitive, but Struff kind of jumped out to an early lead there in the second set. Good for Struff, though. His first ever ATP title. Been around for a long time, and he won in front of his home country fans, which is pretty cool. But either way, Struff did win in straight sets, and it was not enough games in general to go over this number. Picked up a loss there. Then for the dog, we tried to run back the dog we lost in the Monte Carlo final as we tried to take the over 2.5 sets in the Ruud and Tsitsipas match. Didn't get there. Actually, the exact same scoreline as the Struff-Fritz match. So the first set was 7-5. In fact, Tsitsipas was in decent shape to actually win a set, as he was, I believe, up a break in the first set early. He broke in the first game and then ended up getting broken eventually at 5-6 to lose the set. Then he got broken immediately in the second set and lost 6-3. So picked up a loss there. 3 separate finals, 3 straight set wins, which was kind of unexpected. You ended up seeing Ruud win his first ever non-250 title, so congrats to Ruud. I believe Tsitsipas is now 0-11 in ATP 500 finals, which is really bizarre because he's won a couple of Masters 1000 titles. He's won Monte Carlo about 3 times. So for some reason, he just can't win a 500. I don't know why. He's lost in the finals, I believe, 11 times, which is really just brutal for him, but good for Ruud. Maybe he'll keep that momentum going moving forward. For Munich, I already mentioned, Struff did win his first ever ATP title as he beat Fritz in the final in straight sets. And Navone ended up losing to Fucsovics in straight sets, 6-4, 7-5. I said in the episode that I was hoping Fucsovics would win because I want Navone in future tournaments at longer prices, and now that he's still winless in terms of titles on the ATP Tour, I think he'll be getting some pretty disrespectful lines in the future, which I hope to capitalize on maybe next year. But either way, 3 straight set wins, pretty uneventful in general for Sunday. Hopefully the matches on Wednesday onward will be more entertaining and more competitive. Now to get into the actual Madrid previews, starting off with the news. You ended up seeing the return of Alcaraz as he will be coming back after missing Barcelona and Monte Carlo. Djokovic, though, decided to skip it, so he will not be here for the event. Ended up losing in Monte Carlo to Ruud and has kind of taken a break since. We'll see what happens. We know Djokovic is older, and we also know that the only thing that matters right now for him is Grand Slam titles. So he's going to try to stay fresh for the French Open, and he decided that Madrid was not worth his time. So because of that, Djokovic will not be here. Now, for the recent winners, you have seen a pretty top-heavy list of winners because Alcaraz has won each of the last 2 years, as you ended up seeing Alcaraz beat Struff, who made a Cinderella run last year in 3. Alcaraz beats Zverev the year prior after beating Djokovic and Nadal, I believe, in the same event. So I think Alcaraz beat Djokovic, Nadal, and Zverev in the span of 3 days, which is kind of nuts. But he ended up winning that one in straight sets, and Zverev did beat Berrettini 3 years ago. So point is a decent amount of top-heavy, high-quality clay players who've done well here, and we'll see if that continues in 2024. Now, I do have good news, by the way, for the outrights. In addition to the normal outrights to win the event, I have quarter odds. So we're actually going to preview all the quarters, which is something that I try to do in every episode, but unfortunately not enough tournaments actually carry the quarter odds. So that's a bit unfortunate, but not the case this time, as we do have quarter odds. So starting off with the actual first quarter they're going to talk about, you have Sinner being a massive favorite, about -150. Ruud is +380, fresh off of the title in Barcelona. Dimitrov's 12-1, Kashanov's 16-1, Norrie's 18-1, Felix is 20-1, Jari's 20-1. To be honest, nobody else really has a shot, so I'm not going to spend any time going through other names. I'm going to take Sinner at -150, and I am going to take Ruud at +380. Sinner in general, I just think is the best player in the world right now. I know he ended up losing in that marathon to I'm drawing a blank on who he lost to in Monte Carlo. Did he beat Ruud in the end, or did he lose to Ruud? Rune. I'm drawing a blank. Either way, point is Sinner actually looked pretty good in Monte Carlo, lost a 3-set marathon in Monte Carlo, so I'm not going to overreact to him losing that match. Point is, I think Sinner is definitely worthy being the favorite. I think it is a relatively weak quarter in general, and Sinner's been great. I just think he's in line for a good showing. I finally pulled up the results. He ended up beating Rune in 3. He lost to Tsitsipas. That's what happened. So you might remember he probably should have beaten Tsitsipas because there was that missed double fault call, which would have put Sinner up a double break in the 3rd set. So Sinner arguably should have beaten the guy who eventually won Monte Carlo, and he was the only guy to win a set off of Tsitsipas in that entire event. So I'm not going to really view the Monte Carlo loss as a negative. I thought that he was unlucky that the line calling was atrocious, and he gave Tsitsipas a war, and it was the only war that Tsitsipas had in the entire event. So I like the form that Sinner was actually in that event, and I think that should result in a good showing here. I am going to go with Ruud, though, at +380. I think he's earned it. Made the final in Monte Carlo, ended up winning the title in Barcelona. I think he's in line for a potentially deep run. I think Sinner would beat him if they faced off against each other, but I do think that +380 is a pretty disrespectful price. You can argue that fatigue might be an issue, but the final is on Sunday. Ruud obviously has a bye in the first round here, so he's going to be off for a while. I think he has a chance to at least potentially recharge his batteries and put together a good showing here. So I'm going to go with Sinner at -150 and Ruud at +380 as my 2 picks for the first quarter. Moving on to the second quarter, you're looking at Tsitsipas being the favorite, about +240. So a wide open quarter based on the odds. Medvedev is +330. Nadal is 4-1. De Minaur is 9-1. Shelton's 10-1. Court is 14-1. Leheshka 20-1. Tiafoe is 20-1. Bublik, for some reason, is 25-1, even though he doesn't care about clay. Makic is 40-1. Bunch of other long shots, which I might actually get to. So I'm going to read some off. You have Offner at 40-1, Baena at 40-1, Arnaldi at 40-1, Lajovic at 40-1, and you can keep going down the line. Now, Tsitsipas, I understand why he's favored. He obviously had a great past couple of weeks, winning a title in Monte Carlo, and he ended up losing in the final in Barcelona. Was a bit fortunate, though, to beat Diaz Acosta, especially in that 3rd set breaker. Then he ended up losing a set to Lajovic. So I am wondering if Tsitsipas is running out of gas. Now, similarly to Ruud, he has extra time to recover because he's not going to play in the first round, and he's going to have a couple days off. So hopefully Tsitsipas can reset. I am concerned about fatigue, though, and I think he might be in line to be potentially I don't want to say a sucker play, but I think Tsitsipas might be a bit of a trap line here. I find it fascinating that Tsitsipas has just had 2 very solid weeks on clay in pretty, I'd say, important competitions, winning a Masters 1000 and making the final of a 500, and he's +240 to win the quarter. I find that kind of interesting. Now, Medvedev, I still don't think he's a good clay player. We saw him lose to Kashanov a couple of, basically a week or two ago at this point, but he's not exactly a great clay player. I know he won a Masters 1000 title last year. I think we all know he's not a great clay player. It's his worst surface by far. I'm not going to take him at plus 330. Nadal at 4-1, I'm not going to take. I know it's his home country. I know that he is a multiple-time champion here. The issue is he ended up losing to Dimenauer in the second round of Barcelona. Projected second round matchup, Dimenauer. So if he's going to have a rematch against the same guy that just beat him in straight sets, really just a brutal draw for Nadal. He should kill a relative unknown in the first round, but facing off against Dimenauer again in the second round kind of sucks. I don't see much value on that. If that's going to be how difficult your matchup's going to be in the round of 64, I'll pass. I just think 4-1 is not a worthy price. Dimenauer 9-1, I'm not going to take. If you face Nadal in the second round, I'm definitely not going to take you. I just don't think there's any value on it. Dimenauer could win again. Not worth the risk with such a difficult matchup there in the second round, so pass. And I'm going to get into my picks now, actually. My first pick is going to be Tsitsipas. I actually am going to take a little bit of the bait, so to speak. I think plus 240 is disrespectful. I was kind of trying to play devil's advocate there, trying to suggest why he might be mispriced, or why, they are kind of daring you to take Tsitsipas. I don't really get it. I kind of mentioned before that I think that Tsitsipas had a couple of extra days to rest because he's not playing on a Wednesday, obviously. He's going to be getting an off day, or I should say he's going to get a bye in the first round, so he has a decent amount of time to reset, and Tsitsipas has been playing good tennis. I just think that it's kind of a weird line at plus 240. I'm not going to take Nadal with a matchup against Dimenauer in the second round. I'm not going to take Dimenauer because he has a matchup against Nadal in the second round. Medvedev's not a good clay player. So I've already eliminated the other three guys in the quarter, and Shelton at 10-1, I don't trust. I know he won a clay title in Houston, which is basically fake BS clay, which doesn't mean anything to me. So give me Tsitsipas at plus 240. I think the line's off. I think he should be plus 150, maybe, but 240 I find disrespectful. Give me Tsitsipas at plus 240, but since I did kind of eliminate the second, third, and fourth option, you have Shelton and Korda. No chance I'm taking Korda. So I don't like really anybody near the top. Because of that, I'm going to take some flyers. I'm going to go with some long shots here, and I'm going to go with a home country guy. Give me Baena at 40-1. Now, I think Baena is a pretty solid clay player in general. Did lose in the final to Berrettini and Markic, but I do think he is starting to regain his form on clay after a pretty shaky first couple of months of the year. But to go through his actual draw, it's really not that bad. Matchup against Kempfer in the first round with the home country advantage. Then a matchup against Bublik. Bublik, we know, doesn't care about clay, so I think whoever wins that Kempfer and Baena match is going to beat Bublik. And then a matchup against either Makic, Rusevori, or Shelton. Not bad for a draw, which I think actually bodes well for the 40-1. To go through the actual rest of the draw, though, do I think Baena is going to realistically win the quarter? Maybe not, but we did see Struff make a massive run. I believe Zhang made a massive run last year, too. So we have seen a couple of Cinderellas recently making respectable runs. And I think that Baena, based on the current form and based on him having the home country advantage, with a pretty favorable draw, I think can maybe make a deep run. I don't think he's going to get all the way there. Maybe he could hedge, but they're looking at, once again, the path to the round of 16 being favorable and then potentially facing off against Medvedev in the round of 16. Now, I think Medvedev would win. Could Medvedev lose to Arnaldi or maybe Korda? Sure, I think it's possible, but I think that his draw is actually not that bad. So I'm going to take Baena at 40-1 as my home country long shot, and I have a super duper long shot that I'm going to take. Probably the biggest long shot I've ever taken. Give me Medjedovic at 100-1. Now, DraftKings has 65-1. BetMGM has 100-1, so I'll take that differential. Now, Medjedovic, I like a lot as a player. He's not played much tennis recently, but he looked really good in qualifying matchup against Kovacevic, who's really not a great clay player, and I think that he's in line to win that one. Leheshka is also not known for being a great clay player. He's okay, but I do think Medjedovic with the big serve can definitely have some success here. We saw him kind of burst onto the scene at the end of last year as he was able to win the next-gen ATP Finals as he beat Fees in the final. Point is, Medjedovic, I saw him play on clay last year. I think he's actually a very solid player, and I think he's being disrespected here at this price. Now, the problem is he'd have a matchup against Leheshka, then a matchup against Tsitsipas. But Tsitsipas might have to face off against Lajovic again, who took him to 3 in Barcelona. So maybe there might be a bit of a war there, and you could see Medjedovic capitalize on it. It's 100 to 1. I'll take a flyer on it. I just think that he's too good of a player to be priced at 100 to 1. So I am going to go with Medjedovic as my super long shot. Basically a donation, full disclosure, but I do think Medjedovic is a very underrated player who's kind of been off the grid recently, but we saw him having good showings late last year, and I think that can result in him being underrated enough to capitalize on a pretty decent price. But I'll take a flyer for fun, trying to pick this year's Struff or Zhang to make a decent long shot run. Give me the region with a plus 240 favorite. So once again, my 3 picks for the second quarter going to be Tsitsipas at 240, Baena at 4,000, at plus 4,000, and give me Medjedovic at 100 to 1. Moving on to the third quarter, I'm going to look at the overall favorite at Zverev, a plus 175. That's going to be it, but I'll go through the rest of the actual names here. Hurkacz at 5 to 1, who has been okay on clay so far this year. Fritz at 650, who just lost in a final with Struff. He's okay on clay as well. Paul, who I don't believe is that good on clay. Cerundolo, who finds a way to lose in heartbreaking fashion every time, at 14 to 1. Etcheverry at 16 to 1. Who had a respectable showing in Barcelona before losing to the eventual champion Ruud in straight sets. Fees, who had an okay run before losing to Lajovic at 18 to 1 in Barcelona as well. Baez at 20 to 1, Draper at 20 to 1, Monfils at 20 to 1, Morozin 22 to 1, Diaz Acosta 28 to 1. Basically it. I'm going to go with Zverev. I mentioned before he did make the final in 2 of the last 3 times this event was held. And I do think that he is in line to put together a good showing here. He's won the title before. I believe he's won it twice. So he definitely has been comfortable in Madrid in the past. Based on the other clay events, Madrid's one of the faster surfaces, or I should say clay events. So I think you're looking at a spot where Zverev's serve can be a big factor here. Now, it can also be a factor for Hurkacz, but I do think you're looking at Zverev being the best all-around clay player in this region. Thought about Baez at 20 to 1, but I mentioned before the serve actually matters in Madrid. So I have a hard time picking Baez, who's not a great server. So you could argue that Fritz and Hurkacz might be in line to look sharp here because they can serve, but Zverev has been really, really good here historically, and I really like the price. So give me plus 175 on Zverev as my only pick for the third quarter. Moving on to the fourth quarter, you have Alcaraz making his return, who is the 2-time defending champion, and he is minus 165. Rune is 550. You have Rublev at 8 to 1. You have Struff at 10 to 1 after making the final last year. Fekina 22 to 1. You have Humbert at 22 to 1. Musetti 22 to 1. Papyron at 30 to 1. Basically it. Navone's at 35 to 1 if you want to just mention friends of the podcast. But yeah, I'm going to go with Alcaraz. I question how healthy he's actually going to be. I'm aware of that, but he skipped Barcelona and Monte Carlo. So it seems like he was willing to be patient with his return, which I do appreciate. And I think that his region is really not that bad. You're looking at the second favorite being Rune, who we just saw get killed by Struff in the semis of Munich. So Rune, we know, is a good player, can be a head case, though. So I do think that could be an issue. Rublev's been a disaster. You're losing to Nakashima on clay. Good luck with that one. I'm not going to touch Rublev in terms of bets for a while. I just can't trust him, so I'm going to ignore him entirely. Struff I do like, though, at 10 to 1. Off a title in Munich. Confidence might be at a high, and he also made the final here last year. That's going to be it. I am going to go with Alcaraz at minus 165, and I am going to go with Struff at 10 to 1. I just think the value's there on Struff off of a title, and he did make a deep run here last year. Said it before, good serves do actually play well on this clay surface. So I do think you're looking at Struff's serve being a story in this match, in this overall tournament. So give me Struff to make a run at 10 to 1. So once again, my picks for the actual quarters, give me Sinner at minus 150 in the first quarter and Ruud at plus 380. Second quarter is my long shot extravaganza quarter. I have Tsitsipas the favorite at plus 240, Baena at 40 to 1, and Medjedovic at 100 to 1. Third quarter, give me Zverev at plus 175 by himself. Fourth quarter, give me Alcaraz at minus 165 and Struff at 10 to 1. Moving on to the actual outright picks for the event. Time to get into the actual odds for the outrights. You have Sinner as the co-favorite here with Alcaraz, both at plus 250. Zverev is 9 to 1. Tsitsipas is 11 to 1. Ruud is 14 to 1. Medvedev's 20 to 1. Nadal is 20 to 1. So if you want to go for the veteran turn the clock back clock back performance, you can go for Nadal 20 to 1. Am I going to take that? No. I'm happy to see Nadal's odds are starting to be priced correctly, because it was really just insane to see him priced in the single digit range when you knew that physically he wasn't going to be able to hold up. I'm not going to take Nadal, but 20 to 1 at least is a better price to see. It might get higher. We'll see what happens. Rune's at 22 to 1, Hurkacz 35 to 1, Rublev 35 to 1, de Minaur 40 to 1, Struff at 40 to 1, Dimitrov at 50 to 1, Fritz at 60 to 1. You get the point. So, a reminder to shop around. You might find better lines, especially for long shots. I'm not picking any long shots. Historically speaking, it's been a pretty chalky event. If you want to actually look at the winners of this event, historically speaking, I mentioned the last 3 winners already, but to go back even further, Djokovic has won it before. Nadal's won it a bunch. Really, not many long shots have actually completed the Cinderella run. We saw Struff make the final last year. He was competitive, did not win though. But reading off the last couple of winners here, Alcaraz, Zverev, Djokovic, Zverev, Nadal, Djokovic, Murray, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, Murray. And you had Nalbandian, who won in 2007. So from 2008 onward, you've had basically the big 4, if you want to include Murray, and then you throw in Zverev a couple of times, who's won multiple clay titles, and he's a solid clay player. So, yeah, Cinderella runs don't actually do well, at least for winning the overall event. If you're going to take somebody, you might as well take them to reach the final instead of actually winning. But I'm going chalk here. Just simply put, give me Sinner at plus 250. I still think he got hosed on that Tsitsipas Monte Carlo match, but he's still the best player in the world right now. I'll take him at plus 250, and I think his quarter is pretty reasonable. Give me Alcaraz at plus 250 as well. 2-time champion. I'm kind of obligated to do so. And give me Zverev at 9 to 1. Won the title here twice, and he made a final here. So you make deep runs 3 separate times, and you're a 2-time champion. That is definitely worth something to me. So I think that he's in line for a good showing. And to go through the actual years there, Zverev did win the title twice out of the last 5, and he made the final in 3 of the last 5. So I like Zverev's chances here. He's the only pick I have in the third quarter. I think he's in line for a good showing, and he's been good against Alcaraz historically. So maybe that can result in a fun semifinal matchup between the two of them. So once again, my outright picks for Madrid is going to be on Sinner, plus 250, Alcaraz plus 250, and Zverev at plus 900. Apologies, I really did not go with much of a long shot list for the actual outrights to win the event. I saved those for the quarters, but historically, these long shots are a donation to win the event. They just don't win Madrid. It just is what it is. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual outrights. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks for the first round. But before we continue that, do want to take a quick word from our sponsor. We're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your favorite sports, including tennis. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it is a ton of fun. Underdog's available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and even Canada. And I said before, they have a lot of great tennis options for Underdog Fantasy. They have aces, they have double faults, breaks of serve, a lot of niche props, a lot of niche options that you might not be able to find on your local sports books, and they definitely have those available for you on Underdog Fantasy. Plus, new customers can get a pick'em special in the lobby when they sign up. Check the calendar for today's special. Underdog will always be running a ton of different promos, bonus cash airdrop specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow at Underdog Picks on Twitter. That's at Underdog Picks to keep an eye out. And a reminder that Underdog's available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, which is their player versus player format in Florida. So make sure you sign up with the code SGPN, and Underdog will double your first deposit of $100. So Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing Madrid. Now it's time to get into the actual lock and dog picks for the show. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go to a matchup between Moutet and Shang. And for this one, I am going to go with Moutet money line at minus 152. Simply put, Moutet, since he's been healthy, has been really good on clay. We saw him make a very deep run in Chile about a month or two ago, and he's parlayed that into a good group of overall showings over the last couple weeks. He's won 6 of the last 8 matches. He's the much more comfortable player on clay, and he also went through qualifying, which I think should allow him to be more comfortable on the court in Madrid. Did not drop a set in qualifying, so I know Moutet is in good form, and I think that he's in line to look sharp once again on Wednesday. You're looking at Cheng, though, who's been okay on clay. Ended up playing in Barcelona, didn't make it too far, but he did not have to go through qualifying in Madrid. So I am concerned that he's going to look a little bit rusty, especially, or maybe just out of sorts with Madrid. Barcelona plays a lot slower than Madrid does, so I do think that the overall speed of the courts might take some time for Shang to get used to, and I do think that Moutet can eventually outlast Shang in what could be a fun, entertaining match. Maybe it goes 3, but looking at Shang recently, I just think he's in line to lose to I don't want to say a clay expert, but a clay specialist. But you're looking at what happened in Barcelona, beat Shelby in qualifying, beat Grenier, then lost to Makic in straight sets in Madrid. He actually played a challenger event in Madrid. Ended up beating a relative unknown, then lost to Husler in 3. Wasn't great on hard court either before that, as he ended up losing to Davidovich Fokina in Miami. So not exactly playing great tennis. He split his last 6 matches, but losing to Husler in Madrid, not exactly a great look on clay. So I do think Moutet's the better clay player. I think he'll look sharper. Give me Moutet money line at minus 152. I don't mind the spread, but it might go 3. So because of that, give me the money line instead. As for the actual dog, I am going to go to a matchup between a Spaniard and I do think, even though he's up there in years, we know that Ramos Vinolas is not shy of getting himself involved in a bunch of marathons. Give me the over 2.5 sets in the Ramos Vinolas and Kotov match at plus 130. Ramos Vinolas went through qualifying, but he really did not look great in it. And he has gone to a deciding set in 4 of his last 6 clay matches. So to go through Ramos Vinolas' actual path to the bracket here, once again, not the greatest competition. He got by, so that's all that matters, but he really didn't look good. We know Schwartzman is on his last legs on the ATP Tour. He might retire soon. He's been that bad for the last year. But you're looking at just his overall form recently, and they went to 3 sets in qualifying. Ramos Vinolas won, but going to 3 sets against Schwartzman in 2024 is probably not a great look. Also went to 3 sets against Batista Agut. That is a good showing there, but we know Agut is up there in years. Point is, though, we know Ramos Vinolas historically has always been an up and down player. He'll have good sets, he'll have bad sets, and usually results in a marathon. But 4 out of the last 6 matches going 3, I definitely think means there might be value on this over 2.5 set prop. Now, looking at Kotov, I do think Kotov is the better player, but he's really not been good recently. And I do think that even though he is the better player, he also is going to be a bit streaky because it just seems like he's having a hard time maintaining his composure. And psychologically, if you've been in a slump and you are kind of unable to dig yourself out of it, I do wonder if he's going to take himself out of a couple of games. If he maybe gets broken, misses an easy shot, something like that. The smallest thing could trigger a bunch of potential just collapses in various points and maybe just a couple of bad runs for him in the course of this matchup. So I think there's a couple of reasons to expect each guy to have good moments in this match. And Kotov did end up losing in 3 sets in his last match to Offner. So he just lost in a bit of a marathon last time out. Offner has not been good in 2024 either. But simply put, you got Ramos Vinolas being a 3-set magnet recently in 4 of the last 6. Both qualifying matches here against Schwartzman and Agut did go to 3 sets. I think you see a similar script here. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130. So once again, my picks for the show, the lock's going to be on Moutet moneyline at minus 152. My dog is going to be on Ramos Vinolas and Kotov over 2.5 sets at plus 130. As for next episode, we're going to be covering every round. Once again, it is a Masters 1000 event, so because of that, we are going to go back to our usual format where we cover every single round. So next episode will be the round of 64. So stay tuned for that. A lot of tennis content coming up over the next week from Madrid. Until next time, though, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show. Find me on the MLB show. Find me on the WNBA show as well and the NFL show. Until next time, though, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.